Welcome everybody to this special episode of Moshang USA. Today we have a very distinguished guest, Jim Rutt, and we will talk about freedom of speech on US college campuses, or lack thereof, let's say. We'll have some good discussion, I believe. So first of all, without much ado, Lydia, can you just talk a little bit about your platform, YouTube channel, just for our new viewers?
Sure. Happy New Year, everybody, and Happy New Year, Jim. Thank you for accepting our invitation. I'm the founder of Moshang USA. So Moshang USA was founded in 2018. First, we based on WeChat as a public blog. We grew very fast to 300,000 followers within 3 years. Unfortunately, probably we talked too much about the individual liberty and the freedom. WeChat shut us down last September, so we lost our connections with our followers. But we want to rebuild our platform in YouTube, Telegram, and Rumble, and Twitter, many other places. So as a victim to censorship, freedom of speech is dear to our heart. We want to reserve and fight for freedom of speech. That's our important mission to us. Also, we want to produce content in Mandarin, Chinese, and in English, try to provide balanced and comprehensive views of news and commentary about life in the US to Chinese and also to our English audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Jim, let me try to introduce you, but of course you can add. You are right now one of the founders of MIT Free Speech Alliance, right?
Yep, yes.
So we will talk, a lot about the MIT Free Speech Alliance in our episode today. And you graduated from MIT in 1975. Actually, that was the year when I was born. I went to MIT 2002. I only stayed 2 years there. So currently, you are the host of Jim Rutt's show podcast series. I think the podcast examine cutting-edge thinking in science and technology and future of our economic, political, and social systems. Right? So it's quite interesting. Yeah. And you had a very impressive career. I noticed on the website, you were the past chairman of the Santa Fe Institute, a think tank. And you also were CEO of Network Solutions 2 decades ago. And you was the first CTO, I think the Chief Technology Officer for Thomson Reuters. So I guess at that time, I don't know, maybe there was more diverse views at Reuters than now, but that's what I kind of speculate. But okay, so you were at Thomson Reuters, and you founded and led several technology companies throughout your career, and you even produced an award-winning movie and created a popular mobile game I saw on the website. So very impressive. What can you do, Jim?
Yeah, I do all kinds of
everything.
Things. Yeah, I've always been, I follow what I think is interesting, and sometimes it leads to the edge of the cliff and you fall off, and sometimes it leads to very good places. So I've always been that way. Just I follow my nose, and my nose knows to find what's interesting near the cutting edge. Probably relevant to this conversation is I was involved with the building of the online world from the very earliest days. I went to work for a company called The Source back in 1980. That was long before you were even thought of. Well, actually, you were 5 years old. Okay, so Lydia, you weren't even thought of yet, probably, right?
I was born in the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. And so at The Source in 1980, we had much of what's on the web today, but in text mode only, 30 characters a second, $10 an hour. Believe it or not. But there was nothing like it else on earth. Quickly, we had tens of thousands and then hundreds of thousands of customers. and we had mail, we had chat, we had bulletin boards, we had the earliest thing that you might point to as a predecessor to social media. We had newswires, stock prices, online shopping. We even had the first Catholic confession done over chat with the approval of the Archbishop of Washington. So I've actually been involved with the online world with respect to at least the consumer side of it since the very beginning. So I've seen all the iterations of which the internet is only the most recent one, right? And probably not the last one. So
you are a pioneer in the internet technology. I remember I saw the Amazon's first version was also a text only.
Exactly.
So basically, you saw the internet from a baby to a giant. Now the giant affect our life in daily basis.
Exactly. Back, think about it, 1980, maybe there were, by 1981, let's say there were maybe 100,000 humans, consumers, non-academics, online in the world, right? 100,000. And most of them, male, about 96% male at the time, and mostly technical people, etc. And they had to be fairly affluent because it was very, very expensive. And as you say, this tiny little seed is in some ways grown up to be, this world that we live in today. And it's been very interesting and curious, with lots of twists and turns, I will say.
Wow. By the way, I think the beginning of internet had a connection to MIT, right? Through some military research or funding.
Yeah, there was DARPANet originally,
okay. Yeah.
And Bob Kahn, and who was the other dude? The two guys who were basically researchers created the thing. It was clever. Never intended for commercial use. It was designed to be a survivable network in case of nuclear war. Because it had no center. That's the thing that makes the internet different, is that if any bits of it survive, the routers can stitch themselves back together. And truthfully, it was not a good choice to build a commercial network on, and for a number of reasons. But for other reasons, which I could talk about for hours, it did win during that critical period around 1990 when there were still alternatives out there. And we have the internet, and that's at least through this era, that's the platform on which all these other things are growing, including Lydia's all of her various platforms. Classic example about taking advantage of all these affordances that our network worlds offer to us.
Great, definitely we found the right person, since you're among the first dozens of people who are building and leading the internet. Everything we got unfair treatment from internet, we come to you to help us to solve the problem. Okay, since we got connected through MIT Free Speech Alliance, could you tell us more about its organization, and how did you get involved with MIT Free Speech Alliance?
Yes, the MIT Free Speech Alliance is a group now of many hundreds of MIT alums, students, faculty, researchers, and friends of MIT who affiliate with the idea of we need more free speech, more viewpoint diversity, and free inquiry at MIT. But it's very recent. It only started in late October 2021. Myself and two friends of mine from MIT were involved in an email exchange just about things in general, right? And then suddenly the Dorian Abbott affair happened, where MIT disinvited a distinguished geophysicist from giving a talk about exoplanet atmospheres, the atmospheres of planets around other stars than our own. Very technical talk. But he had published an essay, he and another person had published an essay in Newsweek magazine, a general circulation news magazine in the United States, where he had challenged the idea of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and had proposed an alternative called merit, fairness, and equality. And as happens in our world today, all too often, in my opinion, a Twitter mob formed and said, "Whoa, we can't have anybody talking against diversity, equity, and inclusion, even if they have a perfectly reasonable alternative to propose. So we're going to demand that MIT disinvite this person, even though he's not an MIT employee, has no impact on MIT policies, was there strictly in a scientific model." This Twitter mob raised a whole bunch of stink, and in our view, very foolishly, MIT leadership succumbed to the mob and disinvited this distinguished scientist from giving his talk. And so the three of us were had been emailing around about issues about MIT anyway, some of it around DEI and some of it around other things. And we said, damn it, we don't, well, this isn't right. So we said, let's reach out to some of our friends and see if we can pull some people together. And quickly we had a few dozen. Then we came across the the Alumni Free Speech Alliance, AFSA. It turned out that 5 other universities in the United States had already established free speech organizations. I believe it's Cornell, Washington and Lee, Princeton, University of Virginia, and Davidson were the first 5. And we said, okay. So we kind of looked what they were doing, and like many entrepreneurs over the years, we just stole some good ideas and added some of our own, and did some things similar and some things different. And quickly we spun up the MIT Free Speech Alliance. And it is a standalone legal entity, not officially affiliated with MIT. It's now filed for 501c3 status, so it can actually accept today tax-deductible contributions, and has a number of committees that are in operation, working on various projects to, increase the salience of, and frankly, pressure the administration about protecting free speech, free inquiry, and particularly viewpoint diversity on campus.
Yeah, that's very important.
Great. So,
and our website, for anyone who wants to check us out, is mitfreespeech.org.
Yeah, so as I know, you don't have to be an MIT graduate or hold a degree from MIT. You can free to join us and sign as a member to join this course, right?
Correct. And you'll get our weekly email newsletter telling you what's going on, pointing you to events, not just in our MIT Free Speech Alliance, but also other people doing work in the free speech area. And it's been very gratifying to find so many allies, people like FIRE and the Heterodox Academy and other folks. And so we've kind of become very rapidly part of this wider ecosystem around free speech and free inquiry and viewpoint diversity.
Yeah, talking about that, Jim, I'm just wondering, do you see this kind of a fight back to protect free speech now? It's a movement getting some momentum.
Yeah, and really getting going.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you talk about these different organizations, different universities, they start to, to make their voice, these organizations start to make their voices heard.
Yes, in fact, the Alumni Free Speech Association, which we are now formally members as of a couple of weeks ago, they tell us that they have over 100 university groups who they're working with to help come into being. And we provide some of our materials and say, hey, feel free to distribute these to other people. Look at our corporate bylaws, look at our committee structure, et cetera. Because and we hope that there was 5, now I believe there's 15, and hopefully by the summer there'll be over 100 different groups that have formed up around this mission at different universities. So yeah, it's certainly a big growth area, I think, in response, and probably late in the day, actually, to the decay of free speech on America's leading university campuses. And I will say, I was sort of aware of it for a while, But when I've actually dug in and seen how bad it's gotten on campuses today, it's shocking. It's like, whoa, we frankly probably should have done this 5 years ago, but hey, better late than not at all.
Right.
About 10 years ago.
That's very encouraging to see this, let's say, this movement. But I understand from our observations, and it takes some courage for people to speak up against, those, let's say, conformity type of, thinking, because people in academia, they care about their career, as people in business, But what I see now is in many different fronts, like academia, entertainment, media, big corporations. There is kind of an increase in level of conformity. They want everybody to think the same, support the same set of ideas. Do you agree this is the right observation? Also from your perspective, because you graduated in the 70s, right? I think you and the other founder, Tom, mentioned a little bit. At that time, there was a lot of different opinions on campus, but there was more free debate. Can you talk a little bit about this kind of a phenomenon, or what you saw, what has changed
completely
over the last several decades?
Yeah, stood on its head. In 1971, when I showed up at MIT's campus, it was a riot of free speech. You could say anything, right? And anything at all. And keep in mind, this was the end of traditionalism in America. Because, say in 1969, women were not allowed to spend the night in a men's college dorm, right? By 1971, well, what the hell, right? Smoking weed, drinking beer, protesting the Vietnam War, protesting in support of the Vietnam War. We had, you could say anything. And it was a very deep value of the left, right, and center, particularly at elite universities, that freedom of speech was the most important of all values. And we can point back to, ironically enough, the Berkeley free speech movement of 1964 was where this really got started. Berkeley, California, Berkeley University, now one of the most conformist, speech suppressing environments in America. But the idea of radical free speech on college campuses really started there. And, to go from this was by all parties who hated each other, right? But they all agreed that free speech must be protected at all costs, other than the communists. We had a small number of communists, and they were absolutely about suppressing free speech, but they were, less than 1%. And everybody hated them. And the fact that they were against free speech made them non-credible with everybody else, left and right. They all hated the communists, right? Now we've gotten to a point of staggering conformity. One of the things that was the biggest eye-opener for me so far in my learning about what's really going on is that MIT faculty had a series of meetings to discuss the Abbott affair and all the things that came around that, including starting MIT MFSA, is in a confidential poll of about 150 or 160 MIT faculty members, over half, 15%, 50% plus, said on an everyday basis, they felt like their ability to express themselves frankly and clear and uninhibitedly was being suppressed. 50% at MIT, it's like staggering. And when they asked, in the current broader social environment, to what degree do you believe yours and your colleagues' ability to speak freely is under assault? The number was almost 80%. And this is at MIT, the place of intellectual rigor, right? Where I would have thought would have been the last place to fall to this stuff. But, here we are, testimony under private confidential vote. 50% feel they're being suppressed every day, and 80% feel that the environment is generally threatening and suppressive of people honestly and fully expressing themselves. I mean, that's staggering.
Yeah,
I'm wondering if that's an anonymous poll.
and it's a surprise to me because MIT is very strong at the STEM field, and for STEM talents, you are based on facts and the numbers, data, not based on stories. And if a STEM-based elite university trapped into such a strong censorship, even self-censorship, that could be a huge problem for future of this country,
Yeah, and of the world. I mean, the essence of science is open and rigorous inquiry, right? We go, we do experiments, we gather data, we argue with each other. You've never seen arguments quite like two physicists having an argument, right? They go at each other, right? They challenge each other. But if some ideas become holy and they can't be challenged, right, or some authorities must be quoted because they are aligned with some political faction or some ethnic minority or something, that'll be, if not quite the death, the very substantial damage to science, and that will hold back all of humanity. It'll certainly hurt those countries where it's that are most infected, but consider that science is a gift of workers to the world, right? When you create scientific facts or value, everyone in the world can soon take advantage of that. So to the degree that you're sub-optimizing science, you're cheating the human race out of its ability to move forward. This is very, very bad stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Especially we feel nowadays students are least open to debates of all sides. And we fear they probably are already being fed off as so-called brainwashed. So do you think, is there any remedy to rescue those students to make them back to be more acceptable to free speech?
Yeah, oh yes, absolutely. And you're right that probably the ones that have been beaten down the most are the students, right? We don't have the data yet for it, but FIRE has done some surveys on campus and come up with staggering numbers in the 60 and 70% range. We're trying to commission a study on MIT's campus to see where the students are. And interestingly, from what we can tell, the real problem for students isn't so much active censorship as it is self-censorship. And one of the things that we've now that we've worked on this enough to realize how much self-censorship is the most important issue, particularly for students. We're going to be coming out with a whole series of ideas about the idea that break out of the self-censorship closet. You owe it to humanity, you owe it to yourself. And we actually think that the number of even undergraduates who fully are bought into this idea of censorship and destroying viewpoint diversity is still less than half. So the majority are probably still opposed, but they're just intimidated. And if they will speak up, and if other people will support them, then we think there's a chance for there to be a groundswell effect where people say, we're not afraid of what those assholes on Twitter say, right? We have our views and we're going to say them. We're Americans. We have the right to say them, right? And we have some allies who will come to our aid if some people try to beat up on us. And so that's sort of a broad streak of what we see going forward. We already have some interest from some students in starting an on-campus student organization. We're very hopeful that we'll increase our number of students substantially in the coming 6 months, and that there'll be activities on campus to allow people who believe in free speech to come together, say what they want to say, and get away with it. We also are looking to arrange some on-campus debates on controversial issues. And some of them won't be in the normal right-left axis. Some of them may be in other axes, but we think it's very important to model the idea that all speakers who are speaking in good faith and are using, good argumentation and speaking logically, have the right to make their case on campus. And that if you disagree with somebody, disprove them, my friends. Don't say they cannot speak. And so, again, that's another one of our projects that's in the planning stages, is to schedule and support and finance some, controversial debates on campus.
Right. So Jim, Lydia and I went to college in China in the 90s. When you said in the 60s, the male could not stay the night at the female dorm. Actually, in the 90s, still the situation. I think even nowadays, still the same in China. So I was born at the end of the Cultural Revolution in China. I heard, I knew, in China's authoritarian, society, right? There's no constitutional protection of free speech. So I could see really from our perspective, unique perspective, if something cannot be debated, the country can go in a very bad direction, So I think my theory now is, I think in this country, many young people, they haven't experienced much hardship, or really they haven't been suppressed by anything. But it's kind of like, to me, use a harsh word, a little bit empty. They try to hold on to something they think is really noble. Like to them, some speech is better than others, right? So they think they want to, suppress the best speech. But I don't think they really have the wisdom to judge what is good or what's bad. What is good and what's bad has to be decided by, as you said, rigorous debate, right? To hear all the sides, right? So right now, I feel the problem is it's not. There's a free speech for some people, but not for the others. If you have a certain point of view, right? So yeah, I think that's really a problem now.
Yeah, and I do think that some of this is, as you say. We've had free speech in America since since 1971 for sure, but so at least it was starting to roll by 1964. And we had nominal free speech before that, but there was a lot of informal censorship going on in different directions, right? Mm-hmm. But for the last 50 years and more, we've had true free speech. And so, unfortunately, a lot of folks don't understand how rare and valuable that is in the history of the world. There haven't been very many times in human history where you could literally say what you thought. And you didn't have to worry about offending a king or a church or a landlord or a warlord, right? If we look at human history, it's completely covered with various authorities of different sorts that are trying to demand conformity in thinking. And this bubble we've had in the West for the last 50 or 60 years is remarkably unusual in human history and remarkably valuable. And unfortunately, people don't remember the previous period or don't have experience with it, because now that I've had a chance to talk to so many people, I find an amazing number, particularly people from China or Cuba or Venezuela or Poland or Russia, who've actually experienced totalitarianism, and they are stronger supporters of free speech than any current American, because they know what it's like not to have free speech.
Right.
Exactly. I mean, we are the victim of censorship. Even now, we still live in a virtual border town, and we have to face those people who suppress our speech. So it's very difficult for Chinese American living in the US still to fully express all what we want to say. And I think the American kids need to understand that the real authoritarianism is much stronger than what they thought. Some of them just use a fake enemy as their target. They didn't meet the real strong enemy. And if we say something too much, it could endanger our own safety and even our family in China. That's a very different situation. I just hope those very ideological kids can understand that, and then they will appreciate how freedom of speech is such a gift to the country.
That's why I loved reaching out to immigrants into the United States as part of this work, because they can testify from real experience that us Americans really can't. We have you know, we have our theories, we have our ideas, but y'all have actually felt the boot on your face, right? And you can speak to just how different it is to live in a place where you can speak, even though, as you say, if you have family in China, there's still strings upon you, but not in the same way that there is if you're in China, where everything is under surveillance all the time.
Yeah, cherish your right before you lose it.
Exactly.
Hope you don't lose it.
And of course, the other thing too, that, you know, as I mentioned, there was a few communists back there in 1970. There's more now, and they're embedded in the universities. Probably, you know, 3% of 3 to 5% of Americans may, you know, look favorably upon Marxism. In American humanities department, it might be half. You know, in the English departments at elite universities, might be 50% of people call themselves Marxists, right? And of course, these are, what do they call them? Lounge chair Marxists, right? They're the ones who read the books and read the journals and pronounce their Marxism,
right.
Put it in a free country, right? If they were actually in a Marxist country, they'd be the first ones to be thrown in the camps. But you know, there is unfortunately a significant amount of Marxist ideology that is behind some of this suppression of free speech. You know, just as in 1970, the small percentage who wanted to suppress free speech were mostly Marxists. You know, not all, by no means all today. So I'm not trying to say that all people who are opposed to free speech in America are Marxists, but many of the ideological support for things in this area, particularly the so-called woke area, comes from the Frankfurt School, which is essentially a German form of Marxism that is it and its descendants have significant footprint, particularly in humanities and social science departments in the United States higher education.
Yeah, those humanities, you know, departments, they are, in my opinion, like very, let's say, use the term progressive, let's say, because they think Marxism is, you know, we had to learn Marxism at school in China when I was in middle school and even elementary school. You know, they paint a picture of a perfect society, right? So I think some people just are drawn to that, but they didn't know, they didn't experience, maybe they didn't see the atrocities, those kind of totalitarian society. Even China abandoned Marxism decades ago, but now, right now, it's kind of they go turn around again a little bit to have more. You know, the current president wants to have more control and, you know, reduce market economy a little bit. So in general, I feel it's looking at what's happening in China and also in the U.S. You know, the trend right now, what's happening is not predicted by anybody 20 years ago. So what's your take on this? You know, why do we see this kind of you know, wokeism or more this divergence of ideas in this free country?
Yeah, I think, you know, it's the point you made earlier that you know, people are starting to forget what the bad days were like to some degree. At least I would say that's in the West, right? This the emergence of you know, proto-totalitarianism, i.e., wokeness. You know, could not have happened in 1955, 10 years after the fall of Nazi Germany, right? People would have said, we don't want that shit here. And, but now, since it's been so long, they forget that the battle against totalitarianism is an ongoing struggle.
So we also fear that American society become more, divergence of the political left and right. And a lot of people talk about the strong disagree between those two sides, and we fear their understanding of upholding of liberty becomes so different. Do you agree with that? And also, do you think just one group wrong amok or both sides go to more extreme?
Well, it's funny. I would consider myself a political progressive. You know, I voted for Joe Biden. I actually worked for the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016, though I reject where Bernie Sanders has gone since then. But I believe there are still a fairly good number of progressives who are liberals, true liberals, who believe in universal humanity, that all of us are indeed the same species, and that identifying by race as the most important thing is stupid and evil. And it's very strange to me that the progressives in the United States want to bring back racial tribalism. But that does seem to be the game for the far left in the United States, which calls itself the far left now. And this is, maybe the last 6 or 7 years, this has been increasing. And, I think this is horrendously bad for both America and for ethnic minorities, right? I would hope that America can continue its tradition that, hey, when you're here the first generation, even the second, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, right? It always is. Imagine if an American moves to China, not so easy, right? Or even worse, Japan, very hard. But after 2 or 3 generations, America has historically said, all right, your grandchildren are fully Americans and we can't even tell a difference anymore, so whatever, right? And for America to go back away from that and turn into 30 little tribes always warring with each other is going to lead us to a place like Lebanon, where by law there are 36 different ethnic and religious groups that have political representation. And what did that lead to? A failed state, civil war, and a broken economy.
The Balkans. Right.
Yeah.
They said there's a term. We can replace so-called diversification. It's balkanization.
Exactly.
Diversity. I like diversity. Of course, we should not focus on the skin color, any other physical attribute of person, but really look at the character. Diversity is good, but if we use that to divide people, then I worry this country will be more divided and more chaotic.
And so it's very unfortunate that the far left has taken up this cudgel, because it's also true that on the far right, there is a growing number of flat out racists, right? And in my mind, those people are just evil and un-American, and we have nothing to do with them. Some of them have come and offered their support to our cause, somehow thinking that, we like them, and we tell them absolutely not. We are universal humanists. We believe that all humans are of equal dignity, and every human has the opportunity to develop their character, develop their skills, develop their merit. And that's what we should be shooting for, rather than blatant racism on the far right and ethnic tribalism on the far left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, you cannot beat racism with racism. I think that's what the far left trying to sell into us. Just this is a racist country. Indeed, I gave them a chance to believe this idea, but I used my first-hand experience. I traveled a lot, especially to those red states, especially to those so-called Trump land. I see very different thing. I saw a lot of people are so welcoming to us, and they are decent people, they are hardworking. What they need, reasonable political policies to help them, lift them up from those bad policies that made them left behind. That's what they need. But some politicians just try to denounce them and label them as racist. I think that's not fair. I once believed those kind of saying or propaganda, but I used my time during my traveling, try to reach out to those people, and I saw a very different situation.
Yeah, I agree with you. I live in a very red area. Our electoral precinct, 75% for Trump, right? As I say, I wasn't one of them, but I know my neighbors. My neighbors are in the main very good people, and very few of them are racists. And as you say, they feel like they've been left behind, that they've been culturally disrespected by the cultural elites. And so I understand why they voted for Trump, even though I disagree with them. And I don't believe that they're bad people for having done so.
Right.
So yeah, talking about this cultural elite, I think that has a lot to do with lack of freedom of speech, because this elite, they kind of dominate in media, in academia, in big businesses. So, you know, there is a term, you know, a few years ago, the deplorable, right? So I feel like some elite really, they don't trust a lot of ordinary people. You know, maybe they really don't mingle with them much, and they even despise them. So, so do you think we have a problem with so-called elitism in this country? You know, and we should really broaden you know, the discussion, you know, to let more ordinary people, working people from or you know, economic background or walks of life to participate in the discussion. Not just we hear every day are those kind of elite thinking.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I will say, you know, America does offer opportunities. My father dropped out of high school after 9th grade and was a police officer, right? And I was able to go to MIT and have an interesting career. So, you know, people can rise up in America, though I will say that what the elites are doing is making it harder and harder to do so. And that should end. But I do see it. Is the cultural disrespect. You know, the one ethnic group that you're allowed to tell jokes about in America is hillbillies, right? And you know, when I don't live on the coast, I live in the mountains, deep in the mountains, Appalachia. But when I go to the coast, which I do regularly, they just unconsciously are very biased against people who are not coastal blue elites, right? They think that hunting is bad somehow, and you look down on people that drive pickup trucks and shop at Walmart. I mean, I go, what's wrong with you people? You know, lots of very good people do all those things, right? In fact, I trust most of those people more than I trust you, right? And so I do think that's very important. I have a friend, John Chisholm, who was a member of the board of trustees of MIT called the Corporation. And he has been campaigning for something called holistic diversity. And if you search Google, John Chisholm, holistic diversity, MIT, you can find his PowerPoint. And he makes the argument that a school like MIT, which is actually better than some of the non-STEM elite schools like Harvard and Yale, is grossly underrepresented with students from red states, red counties, from religious families, from low income families, even though MIT has a very strong financial aid program, so lower income families can go to MIT, but they don't feel at home there. They feel culturally rejected in some sense. And there was a little bit of that when I showed up there in 1971, but not that much. But apparently, it's a lot more now. The numbers show that the blueness, the urbanness, the cultural elite of the attendees of elite American universities just continues to strengthen and strengthen, and that's a big mistake.
Yeah, at least I think they have the megaphone, right? So in terms of number of people, I just want to be fair. I think those people who don't have a voice, they also have a lot of resentment to the elite. But you know, when I nowadays watch news, I don't just read the article. I read the comments. I try to go to social media to see how people feel. You know, I saw a lot of those people who are despised by elite. They also despise the elite, right? So it's kind of a fair game. But the problem is the elite have all the platforms, have the megaphones, they have the big companies, but the other side, they don't have anything. So they feel very frustrated. You know, I have classmates, they went to work for Facebook or Meta or, you know, Google, I can feel, those are very good people, they have very good education, but they think it's just one way, I can understand how they censor different content on the platform because that's how they think, but we don't have the capabilities to go to YouTube to do the fact check, right? That's the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, and I personally very concerned about the monoculture of big tech. Fortunately, the internet allows us to route around that. And so there are new platforms coming up, and we can not have to play their game. We don't have to play their game. And now, unfortunately, to reach audiences today, you still have to play their game a little bit. But you mentioned, I think, Rumble, for instance, as an alternative. And one of my good friends, Brett Weinstein, has a very popular video cast, hundreds of thousands of views on many of his episodes. He pulled off of YouTube and went to Rumble because they were constantly trying to, demonetize him or censor him or what have you. So there's alternatives. There's a very interesting social media platform called Minds, MINDS.com. Which is radical free speech. And it's not aligned with political parties. If it has any political views, it's libertarian. In fact, frankly, more libertarian than to my tastes, probably, because I do believe we need to have a welfare state and help people and have public education and things like that. But I'm active on Minds to a degree because I really respect their commitment to free speech. And I think people like those will do better over time. So fortunately, the internet gives us ways to escape from the clutches of the monoculture of the people running big tech today.
Right. So we don't have much time left. Toward the end, I want to ask you one topic. We, as Lydia said, we try to be in touch, not out of touch, right? Well, we travel to very backward places. Maybe I should not use the word backward, but rural places, try to see different people and understand things on the ground. But we saw a lot of people are kind of nowadays discouraged. They don't want to speak up because this may not be good for their interest, their career or so on. And also some just don't believe that they don't see hope. They see what's going on nowadays in the world. They are discouraged, and they think each generation, when they look back through their lifetime in this country, each generation become more and more out of touch. Some people think our best generation was World War II generation, but after that, kind of a degradation. But you have a lot of life wisdom, and you run businesses and you start up businesses. You do a lot of business. And what kind of encouragement or suggestion you want to give to those people who are kind of a little bit losing hope?
Well, don't give up hope first. It's because America, for all of its problems, still provides a lot of room for people to do their own thing, right? If you don't like what you're seeing on Twitter and Facebook, go to Minds or go to Getter or one of these places, these new places that are forming up, and more of them will be forming up. You don't like YouTube, go to Rumble. There are alternatives. If you don't like Google, don't work there, right? Go someplace else and start your own thing. But also keep in mind that the state we're in has taken a long time to get there, and the solution won't happen overnight. So be prepared to do the long march, as Mao would say, right? Start.
Long march starts with the first step.
Yeah, exactly, right? Mao started in 1920, was it 29, I think it was? And,
34, I think. Yeah, they started the so-called Long March.
Yeah, and it took them 15 years, right? Probably take longer
for us.
You
are talking about, I was talking about the 1 year, really, the long training, like Long March. But yeah, it took like more than 20 years for him to get to.
Yeah. Yeah, and so don't be discouraged. Discouragement is a dead end. If you become discouraged, you'll definitely lose. If you fight, You might still lose, but you might win. Further, it's like, I feel like a sailor in the days of Columbus who has come across the sea in a leaky ship and we're running out of food. I now smell land. I think that things are finally starting to turn just this year and last year. Things like the MIT Free Speech Alliance and the fact that 100 universities will be setting these kinds of things up over the next 6 months, that students are starting to stand up, that these new non-censorship oriented tech platforms are just getting started. They're small, but they're growing rapidly. I expect we're going to see some surprising results in the 2022 elections that are going to be people finally standing up and saying, we've had enough of this. So I, don't give up hope. The world changes. And America is still a place that if you go out there and put your shoulder to the wheel, you can push the wheel some. And so I remain very hopeful for the future. Yeah. This too shall pass.
We are also very optimistic. I think compared to the challenge we face, like during the world wars and this is nothing. I feel the problem is maybe just some group, they think they're better than others, or maybe they just don't know better yet. But fundamentally, I think we are very optimistic, but we're just trying to find concrete ways to talk to people and get them to more engage, like vote, talk to others, and really try to understand things from different perspectives, encourage free exchange, not just think they are right.
Exactly. Yeah, the first thing, I love the work you're doing, is help people find the others, right? Help them find each other. Because the more they realize they're not alone, the more they're willing to step forward.
Probably we're too good at funding Chinese American grassroots, which make China very pay attention to us and start to censor us. But as a victim of censorship, we refuse to live in victimhood. We want to, use all kinds of way to make our voice heard and try to expand our platform to more free world, and also let people who had no real experience of censorship understand how dangerous it is, especially don't think communism is such a good thing. No, it's just to destroy your life and the whole world. And America must win its war. Otherwise, if American become, retrograde of free speech, that would be a disaster for the whole world, for the human being. So everybody needed to do the thing, do their best to come together and fight for free speech.
I love to hear this. This is we need more of this, more brave free speakers in the world. We will not let these people stop us.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Jim, for your time, and wish you have a wonderful 2022.
Thank you, and keep in touch. So see you next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.